In a small town where everyone knew each other, the Harper family's house stood empty for 30 years. Their sudden disappearance left Detective Thomas with nothing but dead ends and cold leads. Until today, when Bill Layton walks into the police station, clutching a yellowed envelope from his childhood best friend. His hands trembling, he breaks the seal his friend made 3 decades ago. What this letter revealed changed everything we thought we knew about that night. In the heart of Millbrook, where maple trees lined quiet streets and neighbors shared morning greetings, the Harper family's Victorian house now stands as a reminder of the town's greatest mystery. For 3 decades, dust has gathered on windowsills and whispers have echoed through local cafes about what really happened that autumn night in 1993. The Harpers were the kind of family that made small-town life feel complete. James Harper coached Little League on weekends. Sarah Harper organized the town's annual festival. Their son Evan was the boy everyone wanted as a friend, bright, kind, and always ready for adventure. But on October 15, 1993, they vanished without a trace. Detective Michael Thomas remembers that night like it was yesterday. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle. Dishes still sat in the sink, waiting to be washed. A half-empty cup of coffee had grown cold on the kitchen counter. The family car remained in the driveway. It was as if the Harpers had simply evaporated into thin air. For weeks, search parties combed the surrounding woods, calling out names that echoed unanswered through the trees. Helicopters swept the area day and night, their searchlights cutting through darkness that seemed to hide countless secrets. Missing person posters plastered every storefront from Millbrook to the state line, the smiling faces of the Harper family becoming as familiar as the town's own reflection. The FBI arrived, bringing with them theories of kidnapping, witness protection, even foul play. But each lead dissolved like morning mist. No ransom demands came, no bodies were found, no evidence suggested the family had planned to leave. Their bank accounts remained untouched, their passports expired in a drawer. As autumn turned to winter, hope began to fade, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt Detective Thomas's career and transform a close-knit community into a web of suspicion and unspoken questions. 7-year-old Bill Layton felt the loss more deeply than most. Evan Harper wasn't just his best friend, they were inseparable. Their mothers joked they were twins separated at birth. Every afternoon after school, they'd race to their treehouse in the woods behind the Harper house, sharing secrets and planning adventures that only made sense in the minds of young boys. The police interviewed everyone in town, multiple times. Bill's parents, Robert and Margaret Layton, were among the last people to see the Harpers. They told police they'd had dinner with the family the night before their disappearance. Everything seemed normal, they said, just another quiet evening between neighbors, but something about the Layton story never sat right with Detective Thomas. Their answers felt rehearsed, too perfect. Yet without evidence, he could only watch as the case grew colder with each passing year. The annual interviews became routine. Every October, Bill Layton would sit across from Detective Thomas, repeating the same story. "I was just a kid. I don't remember much." His eyes would drift to the floor, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. Thomas knew there was more, but he couldn't prove it, until today. 30 years have passed, and Bill Layton has returned to the police station. But this time, something's different. The confident financial advisor who replaced that nervous 7-year-old boy seems broken, haunted. His hands shake as he clutches an old envelope. "I found it last night," he whispers, while clearing out my parents' attic. But before we reveal what's in that envelope, we need to understand what really happened in those final days before the Harpers disappeared. Because the truth had been hiding in plain sight all along, wrapped in layers of small-town secrets and childhood memories. 3 days before the disappearance, an unusual tension filled the air on Cedar Street. Mrs. Wilson, who lived across from the Harpers, noticed raised voices coming from the Harpers' front porch. It wasn't like them to argue, especially not in public. Young Bill had witnessed something that day, something his 7-year-old mind couldn't fully comprehend. His parents stood on the Harper's porch, his father's face red with anger. Mrs. Harper held Evan protectively behind her, while Bill's mother kept glancing nervously up and down the street. The scene played out like a silent movie to Bill, watching from behind his bedroom window. The adults disappeared inside the house, leaving Bill with a feeling he couldn't shake. Something was wrong. That evening, Evan seemed different during their daily treehouse meeting. Usually bubbling with energy, he sat quietly, picking at the wooden floorboards. "If I had to go away," he said suddenly, "would you still be my best friend?" Bill didn't understand the question then. How could Evan go away? They had plans for Halloween, for Thanksgiving, for building the world's biggest snow fort when winter came. The next day at school, Evan was absent. Bill told himself his friend was just sick. But when he knocked on the Harper's door after school, nobody answered. The house felt empty, though he couldn't explain why. As police began their investigation, they found the Harper house eerily intact. Family photos smiled from the walls. A grocery list magneted to the fridge included items never purchased. Evan's backpack sat by the front door, packed for a school day he never attended. Detective Thomas interviewed the Laytons repeatedly in those first few weeks. They maintained their story dinner the night before. Everything normal, no signs of trouble. But something in Margaret Layton's eyes suggested otherwise. She would start sentences, then stop abruptly, looking to her husband before continuing. Years passed. The case file grew thick with dead ends and false leads. The town moved on, though the mystery lingered like a shadow. Bill grew up, went to college, became successful. But every October he would return to that same interview room, telling the same story. Yet all along, a key piece of evidence lay hidden in the old treehouse where two boys once shared their dreams. Behind a loose board, a stack of notes passed between friends told a different story. Notes that spoke of secret places, of adult conversations overheard, of fear disguised as childhood games. The discovery of these notes led Detective Thomas to dig deeper into the Laytons' past. Property records revealed a cabin deep in the woods, purchased under Robert Layton's company name just months before the Harpers disappeared. The cabin had been abandoned for years, but it held secrets of its own. Inside, investigators found evidence that someone had lived there temporarily: food wrappers, blankets, children's drawings signed by Evan. A trapdoor revealed a basement, hastily furnished as if for a short stay. Among the items left behind was a journal belonging to James Harper, its pages filled with desperate words about escape, about protection, about a man named Simmons who promised to help. The journal entries painted a disturbing picture. The Laytons had been blackmailing the Harpers, using something from their past as leverage. Each dinner, each friendly conversation between neighbors had been laced with threats and demands. The Harpers had been prisoners in their own lives, planning their escape in secret. Mr. Simmons wasn't hard to find. A retired private investigator living 2 states away, he had been waiting for this day. He remembered the Harpers well, a desperate family seeking a new life, willing to leave everything behind to escape the Laytons' control. But the real breakthrough came when Bill finally opened that envelope he found in his parents' attic. Inside was a letter from Evan, written the day before they disappeared. The words of a 7-year-old boy who understood more than anyone realized. "Dear Bill, I'm sorry I can't tell you where we're going. Mom says it's not safe. Your dad knows something about my dad from before I was born, something bad. He makes my parents do things they don't want to do. Mom cries a lot. Dad says we have to leave to be safe. I wanted to say goodbye, but I can't. Maybe one day I can come back and we can build that snow fort. Your best friend forever, Evan." The letter cracked the case wide open. With this evidence, police were able to track down the Harper family, living under new names in a small town in Oregon. They had built a new life there, always looking over their shoulders, always wondering if the past would catch up to them. The Laytons were arrested, their years of manipulation and blackmail finally exposed. The truth about what they held over the Harpers came to light, evidence of a financial mistake James Harper had made in his youth, one that Robert Layton had discovered and twisted into a weapon. The Harpers returned to Millbrook to testify, finding a community ready to embrace them after 30 years of absence. Evan, now a grown man with a family of his own, stood in front of his childhood home, remembering the fear that had driven them away and the courage it took to return. Bill's confession helped bring justice, though it meant sending his own parents to prison. The weight of childhood guilt lifted from his shoulders as he finally did what he couldn't do as a scared 7-year-old boy. He helped his best friend. Today, the Harper house no longer stands empty. New memories are being made within its walls, and old wounds are finally beginning to heal. The mystery that haunted Millbrook for 30 years has been solved, reminding us that sometimes the deepest secrets hide in the most familiar places. And you, what would you do if you discovered a truth that could destroy your family but save another?